Every circumstance you are living in is not destiny, but only a faithful mirror reflecting what you believe within. There is an invisible yet absolute law always at work, a law that shows no favoritism and makes no judgment, but simply responds with precision to the signal you send out. This journey is not a race to change the world, but a return to the inner blueprint where peace brings transformation, where faith opens what once seemed impossible, and where the light has never been extinguished. This video will guide you through each deeper layer of awareness to make it clear that life does not revolve around what happens to you, but around what you choose to become within the silent turning point. Every circumstance you live in is but a mirror, reflecting what has already taken root within. The world never holds independent power to decide your destiny. It only functions like a still surface of water, faithfully mirroring the thoughts and emotions you habitually nurture. If your heart is filled with anxiety, you will see its reflection appear in every event. If your soul carries peace, circumstances begin to align themselves to mirror that peace. The secret of life does not lie in the noisy stream outside, but in the silent center within, where all true causes are born. The turning point of life is not when the world changes, but when you pause long enough to realize that the world never held the power. That very realization is already a movement, an unseen axis shifting. When you no longer believe that circumstances are the master, you see power return to its rightful place. Your inner being, there lies the origin of every image, every opportunity, every challenge. There lies the mold that shapes every detail of life. Those who do not know this truth look at the shadow and mistake it for the substance. Look at the result and mistake it for the cause. But those who know turn back to the root, and from that root they reshape the entire picture. This silent turning point does not arrive with thunder, nor with a noisy upheaval, but with a profound stillness. It is like the moment when a room, dark for many years, suddenly has a single candle lit. That light does not need to roar. Its presence alone is enough to transform the whole scene. The issue is not that you must battle the darkness, but that you have not yet realized you can light the flame within. So it is with your life. For many years, you may have tried to force circumstances into submission, but only when you become still and turn your gaze inward do you see that the key has always been there. People often make the mistake of thinking they must wait for the storm to pass before they can be safe, or wait for conditions to align before they can be happy. But the truth is that peace is not the effect of change. It is the cause of change. When you place peace in its rightful position, it becomes the nucleus that turns your entire life. When you are steady within, you send out a new signal, and the world must respond to that signal with corresponding events. This is not a random miracle. This is the spiritual law. The silent turning point does not call you to become a dreamer who denies pain or pretends all is well. On the contrary, it invites you to look directly at your circumstances, but with new eyes. Instead of asking why the world is against me, you begin to ask what within me is being reflected through this circumstance. That question opens another door, a path that leads back to the origin, and the very moment you shift direction, power begins to be restored to you. When you sit still, you realize that all this time you have tried to use willpower to control circumstances, tried to wait for storms to subside, but all such efforts are like trying to adjust the shadow in a mirror without touching the real face. True change comes only when you touch the root, when you choose again what you believe, what you feel, what you sustain as your constant state, and the moment you do, the outer world has no choice but to turn. This turning point is so quiet that others may not notice. They may see you still go to work, still carry on daily routines, still speak as usual, but within, a silent decision has been made, and that decision holds the power to rotate the axis of your life. It may be the moment you stop defining yourself by failure. It may be the instant you refrain from replaying the old script in your mind. It may be the quiet affirmation that I am no longer waiting for change. I am the change. These moments, though small, are the underground stream from which every river is formed. When you stand in the silent turning point, you realize that your attention is never neutral. Attention is a creative force. Wherever you direct it, life begins to construct itself accordingly. The world is not designed to resist you. It merely responds to the signal you send. If you keep repeating within that you are powerless, you have unconsciously signed the order for the world to keep providing evidence of your powerlessness. If you begin to sow the belief that peace is my birthright, the world must bring forth proof of that belief. Power lies not in fleeting flashes of emotion, but in consistency. The silent turning point is the beginning of inner discipline. It does not ask you to prove yourself. It does not require noise. It requires loyalty to the truth within. It is like the sower in the field, knowing that the only task is to plant the right seed, tend it, and wait patiently. All growth takes place in silence, and harvest comes not because of clamor, but because the law operates with precision. One day, you will look back and realize that every change in your life began with that moment. No one else knew, no one else saw, but within you the axis had turned. You ceased waiting for outward evidence to believe and began to believe first, letting evidence follow, and from that moment you stepped out of the old cycle into a new space where you are the master of your mind and your life. The silent turning point is where peace begins, where faith becomes law, and where you reclaim full authority of your destiny. It is not loud, it is not flamboyant, but it is the greatest power you possess. For once you have shifted the axis within, nothing outside can bind you ever again. Peace brings change. For so long, people have believed that only when circumstances change can they finally rest at ease. When there is money in the bank, when the family is secure, when work flows smoothly, when others acknowledge their worth, then, and only then, do they allow themselves to breathe freely. Yet the spiritual truth moves in the opposite direction. Peace is not the prize waiting at the end of the road. It is the beginning that causes the road to unfold. If you wait for the storm to pass in order to be calm, you will find that one storm merely gives way to another. But if you begin with the calm within, those storms gradually lose their power, even dissolving altogether because they no longer have a foundation to exist upon. This is the beautiful paradox of spiritual law. True faith is not a fleeting burst of enthusiasm, but a decisive choice within the heart. When you stand in a chaotic room, the noise rushing around you, and you choose not to let your mind be pulled in, that moment is power. When you are surrounded by negative news and harsh judgments, and you quietly affirm that peace is my natural right, you are rewriting the script of your entire day, and the world will mirror that decision with corresponding events, not because of whimsical magic, but because this is the principle of operation. Inner peace is always the first cause of outer peace. Think back for a moment. How many times have you expected something to change only to be disappointed when it did not come? You said, when I find a new job, I will feel secure. When I leave this relationship, I will feel free. When my health is restored, I will rejoice again. But because you anchored peace to outside conditions, you unknowingly placed yourself into bondage. Spiritual law never allows bondage to produce freedom. It only responds when you choose again the center of your being, no longer relying on outward shadows, but on the inward source. Perhaps you are listening now and asking, how can I begin with peace when everything around me is still in disorder? The answer is so simple, it is easy to overlook. Choose to sit for a moment, to relax your breath, and remind yourself, I need no evidence to know peace belongs to me. You can try this even now. You may look around your room, notice all that is unfinished, yet at the same time decide that in this very moment I allow peace to be present. What shifts in your body when you do this? What changes in the way you perceive the problem? This is the question I want to leave with you, the one listening to this message. Have you ever tried placing peace before change? Have you ever dared to believe that inner peace itself is the power that turns circumstances? Pause for a moment and answer within. That answer will reveal where you are living from, whether from the root within or from conditions without. I want to thank you for being truly present here, not only hearing with your ears, but listening with your heart. When you understand that peace is the cause and not the effect, you begin to look at life with new eyes. You see clearly that faith is not repeated words, but a position you stand firm upon. You can be in the midst of chaos and still choose calm. You can walk through a season of drought and still believe in the harvest. You can watch the storm approach and yet know there is a place within untouched by it all. This choice compels the outer picture to slowly rearrange itself, just as a compass needle aligns to the true north and every line of life begins to follow suit. You do not need to wait until conditions are favorable in order to believe. Believe first, and conditions will follow. This is the principle emphasized by every sage. A seed must take root before a tree can grow, never the other way around. Peace is that seed. Once it takes root in you, no adversity can destroy it. Trials may shake the surface, but the root of peace remains deep and continues to grow. And from that root, the blossoms of joy, opportunity, and freedom will steadily appear in your life. Therefore, what you need is not to attempt to control every detail of your existence, but to choose again your state. Instead of asking, when will I finally be secure? Ask, how will I sow peace into this moment? Instead of waiting for evidence to believe, let your belief become the evidence. When you do this, you enter a realm few ever walk, a realm where peace leads change, where every truth begins from within. And there, in that quiet but eternal place, you will know that all power has returned to you. The mirror of belief, the outer world, is never the starting point. It is only the faithful mirror of the vibrations within you. Every thought held long enough, every emotion repeated often enough, leaves its imprint upon this mirror and then becomes the image before your eyes. If you see the repetition of difficulties, if you witness cycles of stagnation returning again and again, it is not because the world conspires against you, but because the mirror only reflects what you have consented to nourish in your mind. People often believe that by rearranging the scenery outside, they can create a new life. But they forget that the picture is only an effect, never the cause. To change the picture without altering the mold will only produce repetition in a new form. Your dominant vibration is the sum of your thoughts, expectations, and emotions. When you believe in lack, even though you speak of abundance, the mirror reflects lack, for that is the true current running within. When you long for love but secretly expect rejection, the mirror reflects rejection, for that is the pattern you have silently rehearsed. The world does not judge right or wrong. It simply mirrors what you hold as your standard. This is why forcing outer conditions is almost meaningless. You may change your job, move to a new place, cut off a relationship, but if the inner vibration remains the same, the new circumstances will quickly wear the same face as the old. It is like looking into a mirror and disliking the reflection. You may polish the glass, but if the wrinkles remain on your face, the mirror will reflect them again. To change the image, you must change yourself. Belief is the root, the mold, the central axis. It is not just a passing thought, but an approval repeated until it becomes normal. What you call normal is what shapes your picture. If you regard unrest as normal, you will find unrest at every turn. If you accept delay as normal, you will unconsciously follow the path filled with obstacles. But if you dare to consider freedom, clarity, and peace as normal, you will see every corner of life begin to shift in alignment with that standard. The world does not reflect instantly, but with the precision of law. You cannot plant a seed today and expect a field of ripe grain tomorrow, yet you can be certain that the seed will sprout according to its nature. Belief operates in the same way. It does not promise speed, but it always promises accuracy. The reflection may come after a day, a month, or longer, but it will come in exact agreement with what you truly sustain within. The important thing is to be honest with yourself, not what you say you believe, but what you truly believe when no one is watching. In the silent hours, what do you think of yourself? What do you expect to happen? How do you define the world? These quiet currents are what form the picture outside. A person may declare optimism with their lips, but if doubt is repeated in their heart, the mirror will return. The image of doubt. Therefore, if you wish to change the result, do not rush to touch the mirror. Turn back instead to transform belief. A new belief does not arise from empty slogans, but from steady practice. Each day you choose a new image, a new affirmation, a new state, and you nurture it until it becomes normal. When the new becomes normal, the mirror begins to change. When you cease defining yourself by old limits and accept a new identity, the reflection rearranges itself to confirm that identity. The mirror of belief is impartial. It does not care what you desire. It only reflects what you truly consent to sustain. This is both the challenge and the liberation. A challenge because you cannot pretend. A liberation because you do not need to plead with the world. You need only to rewrite the mold within. When belief shifts, the whole of life must echo that shift. When you grasp this truth, you stop chasing the shadow in the mirror and begin to correct yourself. You stop using force to push away the reflection, and instead you nourish the light within. Then, as surely as law itself, the mirror will reflect a new life, not because you compelled it, but because you renewed the root within. This is the real power, the power of belief, and the foundation for every lasting transformation in life. The consistency of light. Light never goes out. It is not a flash that appears for a moment and vanishes, but the steady flame of awareness. True power does not lie in fleeting bursts of inspiration, but in the regular return to the state you have chosen. Many people have experienced moments of illumination, felt their hearts open, believed that everything would change from that point on. Yet only days later, they fell back into old cycles and concluded that the light was nothing but an illusion. The truth is otherwise. The light was never lost. They simply lacked the consistency to keep returning to it. Consistency is the measure of faith. A decision repeated many times, a state returned to each day, carves a pathway in the mind and sinks deep into the subconscious, just like drops of water falling on stone. Harmless at first, But with the passing of years, the stone is shaped into a channel. So it is with thoughts, so it is with emotions. What you sustain repeatedly imprints itself upon your life. Whether small or great, that is why it is not the rare flashes of brilliance that decide the outcome, but the steady, persistent, unwavering light. This is where many are mistaken. They think that intense emotions or profound moments of ecstasy are what bring about change. But spiritual law is not measured by intensity. It is measured by steadiness, a quiet affirmation of peace, repeated daily even when nothing seems to change, carries far greater power than a passionate prayer, quickly forgotten. The real strength of light is in its faithful return. Look at nature. The sun rises every morning, unhurried, without noise, yet because of that regularity, Lifenduris, the rainy season comes and goes year after year, and because of that repetition, the soil grows fertile. The power of nature is in its consistency, and so is the power of spirit. When you choose to return to your chosen state again and again, you are building a new atmosphere for your life, and in time, the world must reflect that atmosphere back to you. Have you ever wondered what might happen if you remain truly consistent in a new belief for 30 days without interruption? If you refuse to let doubt interfere? If you did not allow old habits to drag you back, but each day you return to a clear affirmation that peace is my right, abundance is my nature, freedom is my essence, your life would change so completely that you could hardly believe it came from such a quiet shift. Yet this is precisely how spiritual law operates on this journey. There will be days of clarity and days of uncertainty, but the deciding factor is not how you feel on any given day. It is the choice you repeat when doubt comes. You may waver, but if you return, the light is still there. It never goes out. It only waits for you to remember and come back. And with each return, you reaffirm your power once more. Consistency is the bridge between dream and reality. Without it, every spark falls into emptiness. With it, even the smallest actions accumulate into invisible strength. This is why it is said that success is not what you do once, but what you do consistently. And in the realm of spirit, consistency is not merely a habit. It is the flame that keeps the light of awareness alive. I want to ask you, the one listening to this message, are you willing to commit to returning to the light every day? Are you willing to choose consistency over fleeting emotion? If you are truly ready, then leave a simple statement below, I am ready to change, or even just the number 1, because even that small declaration is a beginning of consistency. It is proof that you are present, that you are choosing, that you have begun to act from within. I thank you for not only listening with your ears, but responding with your will and your heart. Remember, light never goes out. It only asks that you return again and again, and each time you return, you carve the new pathway deeper into your mind until it becomes the only path you walk. Then you will no longer struggle to maintain it, for it will have become your new normal, and the outer world will have no choice but to reflect that new normal. This is the secret of lasting change, the secret of the eternal light within you. The law of belief operates like gravity. Spiritual law does not judge, and it does not show favoritism. It does not care who you are, where you come from, whether you have succeeded or failed. It only responds precisely to the state you sustain. Like gravity, you may believe in it or not, know it or not, yet gravity still holds you to the ground. Belief is the same. It works silently, continuously, never resting, and it is shaping every experience you have in life. When you grasp this, you begin to see an undeniable truth. No circumstance is random. Every result, whether small or great, can be traced back to a state of consciousness. You held long enough, a person who constantly harbors fear of lack will find themselves in situations that confirm that fear. A person who sustains trust in life will see opportunities open where others see only walls. The law does not favor one person over another. It faithfully mirrors the vibration. Each one carries. This explains why so many complain that they have prayed, affirmed, tried countless methods, and still see no change. They think the law is not working. But in fact, it works with perfect accuracy. The issue is that they pray with their lips while sustaining anxiety in their hearts. They affirm prosperity while still believing in delay. The law does not listen to words. It listens only to the true state, and that state is reflected impartially, just as a mirror does not praise or condemn. It only returns the image before it. This fairness both holds you accountable and sets you free. For you no longer need to see yourself as a victim of fate, of others, or of circumstances. You need only look within to find the root. If you desire a different result, you need only plant a different state. Transformation does not come from outer effort, but from the inward shift of consciousness. That is why small but steady inner changes are the beginning of every outward revolution. Observe closely. When you sustain anxiety, your body tightens, your voice changes, your decisions become rushed, and you attract matching circumstances. When you sustain peace, your breath steadies, your demeanor softens, your vision clears, and the world responds with doors opening gently. The law takes no side. It simply answers faithfully to the signal you send. You may resent it or you may harness it. The choice is entirely yours. Here lies the key. The operation of the law does not depend on your passing moods, but on the stream of vibration you sustain over time. Fleeting sparks of inspiration may crack the door open, but only consistency keeps it wide. If today you believe, tomorrow you doubt, and the next day you believe again, the law will reflect that, wavering with half-formed results. But if you stand firm in one belief, even before seeing evidence, the law must reflect it in due course. Never forget this. The law never sleeps. Every thought, every feeling, every image you nurture is a seed. They are sown not only in moments of focus, but in careless hours, in old habits repeated, in idle words spoken. That is why your life today is the harvest of countless seeds planted in the past. And the good news is that from this moment on, you can sow new seeds so that tomorrow the mirror reflects a different picture. Picture a river. Its flow depends on the terrain it runs through. If you wish to change its course, you cannot twist it at the mouth. You must go to the source. Where the landscape is formed, consciousness is the same. If you want to change results, do not struggle at the outlet. Go back to the inner state where the true current is set. When the terrain of the mind changes, the river of experience naturally flows in a new direction. Some may ask, if the law works so impartially, why do things happen that I never believed? The answer is that you may not have believed consciously, but you consented subconsciously. Many beliefs were formed in childhood from what was repeated around you, from painful memories, from the judgments of society. They lie deep in the foundation, often unseen, but the law still responds, for it only listens to the signal you truly sustain. whether conscious or not. The power lies in this. Every belief can be replaced. No belief is permanent. As you begin to sow new images, cultivate new feelings, and sustain them consistently, the subconscious gradually accepts. And once the subconscious accepts, the law responds instantly, without hesitation, without delay. The law of belief operates like gravity. You cannot bargain with it. You cannot negotiate. You can only learn to walk in alignment with its truth. When you understand this, you cease wasting energy, arguing with circumstances, and begin using energy to choose your inner state. That is the only task that truly matters. And when you do it, the whole world must shift to reflect your choice. Thus, instead of trying to change the shadow in the mirror, you change your own face. Instead of waiting for the world to give you reason to believe, you believe first, and the world has no choice but to confirm that belief. This is lawfare as gravity, precise as the rising sun, certain as your every breath. When you live in this awareness, you step out of the role of victim and into the place of conscious creator, and that is true freedom. Hidden beliefs and emotional expectation. There are unconscious scripts written long ago that still govern your life today. They do not appear openly. They require no declaration, yet they weave themselves into every reaction and every decision. A child who once heard again and again that life is always scarce may grow into an adult carrying an unseen pattern that wealth is hard to find and harder to keep. A person who has known abandonment may carry in the heart an unspoken belief that love is never lasting. These scripts do not lie upon the lips. They dwell within, and spiritual law always responds faithfully to them. This is why some plead day and night yet see no result. For the law does not listen to words. It reads the signal of dominant emotion. You may say, I believe in healing, but if deep in your heart you are still waiting for the symptoms to return, the signal the law receives is the expectation of illness. You may affirm, I am wealthy, but if your prevailing emotion is worry about tomorrow's lack, the law will reflect the worry, not the affirmation. The law does not operate by form, but by essence, not by speech, but by the vibration of feeling. This demands honesty with yourself. Look deeply at what you truly expect in silence. When the mask falls away, what outcome are you preparing for? Do you expect delay, rejection, failure? Or do you expect doors to open, to be welcomed, to walk in ease? That expectation is your true prayer, repeated daily in emotion. A hurried petition cannot outweigh the emotional expectation rooted in the subconscious. Notice, when you step into a new situation, before anything happens, your heart has already reached a hidden conclusion. Are you bracing for rejection or preparing for acceptance? Do you expect struggle or do you expect flow? These expectations are not invisible. They radiate energy, and that very energy is the signal to which the law responds. Here lies a principle that explains many mysteries. It is not what you say, you believe, but what you feel when you say it. Hidden belief is not destiny. It can be replaced, but first it must be seen. If you deny it or pretend it no longer lives in you, it will continue to direct events from the shadows the moment you dare to face it. You have walked halfway to freedom, for once awareness shines, the power of the unconscious weakens. From there, you can plant a new expectation, nurture it with new feeling until that expectation becomes the new normal. Emotional expectation is the true language of prayer. It does not sound outwardly. It resounds inwardly. It requires no form, yet has more creative power than any spoken words. This is the power of the voice. Within, not a voice you merely hear, but a place you return to. That inner voice need not be loud. It need only be consistent. It need not be dramatic. It need only be sincere. And when you return to that space day after day, hidden belief is rewritten, emotional expectation changes color, and the law of spirit responds with a new picture. Remember, outward petition cannot alter results. If inwardly you still consent to the old script, you may repeat hundreds of affirmations, but if your heart continues to nurse doubt, the outcome will reflect that doubt. What you need is not more words, but a renewal of felt experience. When you think of abundance, let the emotion of completeness, of sufficiency, fill your heart. When you think of love, let the feeling of being received, of being safe, spread through your whole being. That feeling is the evidence you have. So in a new signal, at first this practice may feel difficult, for the old script has run for many years. You will find yourself often pulled back into worry, into the expectation of failure, but do not call this failure. Each time you recognize and choose again a new emotion, you weaken the grip of the old, and so, little by little, your inner expectation is transformed. One day you will notice you respond entirely differently to the same situation. So this is not coincidence. It is proof that the hidden belief has been replaced. The truth is that spiritual law is always fair. It does not care how many years you have lived under an old script. It responds only to the one you sustain today. Therefore, in this very moment, you may begin to rewrite by changing expectation. By nurturing new feeling, you change the result itself. You need no one's permission. You need not wait for favorable conditions. You need only the courage to step into the inner space, to listen to the true voice, and to give it a new song. And then the world will no longer mirror the past, but will reflect the present you have chosen. Thought is the first cause. No thought you nurture is ever harmless. It is a silent mold that in time takes form as an event, a circumstance, a fragment of life itself. Those unaware of this truth imagine that thoughts are like drifting clouds, passing through the mind and leaving no trace. But in the order of spirit, every thought is a seed planted in the invisible soil of the subconscious, and once sown, it must sprout after its kind. No seed is ever wasted. Only some are tended and some are left unattended. Negative imaginings, anxious rehearsals, painful recollections are all creative practices for undesirable outcomes. When you sit and envision failure, you are training the mind to rehearse a script, and the subconscious does not know whether it is fiction or reality. It only receives command and prepares for the day when the stage of your life performs that script. This is why repeated fear so often becomes fact, not because the world is unjust, but because people have unwittingly signed a contract of creation through undisciplined thinking. Mental discipline does not mean controlling every fragment of thought, for that is impossible. It means choosing the seed you wish to plant and remaining faithful to it. If you choose peace, you must guard the soil of your mind from the weeds of panic. If you choose abundance, you must protect it from images of lack. Discipline is the practice of returning, of reminding yourself, of faithfully watering the seed you have chosen, not by force, but by steadfastness. Some believe one good thought, one sincere prayer, is enough to transform life. But trees do not grow from a single watering, nor does a harvest ripen from one day of sun. Life requires repetition, nourishment, persistence. Thought is the same A thought becomes true, cause only when it is sustained with feeling and repetition, an image revisited often, a belief held tightly, gradually forms the atmosphere around you. And from that atmosphere, outer events must reflect. Everything in life can be traced back to a thought. A house is built from a plan, the plan from an idea. A great journey begins with a small decision in the mind. A tragedy begins with a mistaken belief. Repeated for years, nothing enters being without passing first through the gate of thought. Therefore, when you take responsibility for your thinking, you are taking responsibility for your entire life. Imagine entering a garden. If you do not choose seeds, the soil will still produce, but it will bring forth weeds. The mind is the same. Left unguarded, it sprouts negative images, painful memories, anxious forecasts, until they overrun the field. But if you choose, plant, water, and tend, that garden becomes lush with flowers and fruit. The soil of the mind does not discriminate. It only receives seed and nourishes it. The choice of seed is yours. Here is the subtlety. You do not need to chase down every stray thought. You need only focus on the thoughts you choose to keep. And gradually they will shape the entire garden. One clear thought, sustained by positive feeling, has the power to outweigh dozens of weak and fleeting impressions. The measure is not how many thoughts pass through your mind in a day, but which ones you sustained and protected. Thought is the first cause. It is the root, the blueprint, the opening note. Never underestimate a single thought, for within it lies the seed of the future. If you desire to change your life, do not only change your actions, do not only change your circumstances, change your thoughts. For when thought changes, emotion changes, action changes, and results must follow. When you choose to plant peace instead of anxiety, hope instead of doubt, love instead of fear, you are rewriting the future with a new design. And spiritual law will faithfully respond, as it always has. Emotion is the fuel of creation. A thought by itself is only a seed. But for that seed to sprout and grow, it needs soil, water, light, and nourishment. In the life of spirit, that nourishment is emotion. A thought only gains power when it is accelerated by feeling. Without it, it is like faint ink on paper, easily faded and forgotten. But when emotion is joined to it, the thought becomes a command engraved into the subconscious, and from there, the law of spirit begins to move, to bring it forth into reality. The state of feeling is the true language sent to the law. When you think of something, the real question is not only what you think, but what you feel as you think it. If you affirm I am healthy while your heart is full of anxiety, the signal you send is not health, but fear of illness. If you imagine a prosperous life while your heart is tightened in worry, the signal you send is not prosperity, but lack. The law does not hear words. It reads the rhythm of emotion, and that rhythm is the command that shapes the picture. You will see emotion is the fuel of creation, and therefore it is never meaningless every time you let yourself sink into fear. You are fueling a negative script every time you cultivate gratitude. You are speeding the unfolding of a brighter one. That is why peace is not a luxury reserved for idle moments, but a practical strategy for living. To keep peace within is to ensure the fuel flows in the right direction, to guarantee that the thoughts you sow are properly nourished. Many assume that only intense excitement can create change, but emotion does not need to be loud to be effective. Peace is the strongest emotion because it is steady, continuous, and not easily disturbed. A surge of passion may ignite you for a moment, but peace is like a hidden river, quietly flowing and shaping the landscape around it. When you live in peace, you radiate a steady signal, and it is that very steadiness to which the law most faithfully responds. Look back, and you will see that your wisest decisions were made in calm. When you were angry, you made mistakes, you regretted. When you panicked, you lost sight of direction. But in peace, deep wisdom within had the space to speak. Peace does not make you passive. On the contrary, it makes you strong because it turns your emotions into a creative force rather than a destructive storm. This means that practicing emotion is not about pretending to be positive, but about selecting the fuel you wish to use in your creative process. You might ask yourself, when paired with which feeling does this thought become a strong command? When I think of health, I will join it with gratitude. When I think of my work, I will join it with enthusiasm. When I think of love, I will join it with the feeling of being received. In this way, you are not only planting seeds, but also supplying them with the energy to grow. Emotion is like the current that runs through a lamp. Thought is the wire. But without current, the lamp remains lifeless. When the current flows, the light shines. So too, when emotion flows into thought, it becomes life. This is why those who repeat dry affirmations often see no change, while those who truly enter the positive feeling of what they affirm see results swiftly. The difference is not in the words, but in the energy of emotion that accompanies them. Remember, peace is not only the reward at the end, it is the means you need from the beginning. It is not a luxury for the idle, it is the strongest weapon in your hands. When you choose peace, you choose the purest fuel for creation. You give the law a clear, undivided signal, and the law will answer with precision. So from this day forward, do not let emotions drift unconsciously. Regard them as precious streams of energy. Choose them, nurture them, and use them intentionally. When you combine a clear thought with the right emotion, you set the whole creative process in motion toward your desire, and then, like a tree watered faithfully, your life will blossom and bear fruit after the kind of seed you planted, with the very fuel you chose to nourish it. Faith is the substance of the invisible. Faith is not the denial of facts. It does not ask you to close your eyes to adversity, nor to pretend there are no problems. Faith is the ability to look through those appearances and touch a deeper order where spiritual truth is at work. When the body is weary, faith does not tell you to ignore the symptoms, but it allows you to see that divine life is still flowing through every cell. When finances are tight, faith does not force you to deny the numbers, but it reminds you that the abundance of the universe has never run dry. Faith views circumstances with eyes that rise above appearances to see the essence within. There is a reason why the great spiritual teachers called faith the substance of the invisible. Everything that appears must first have a foundation in the unseen. Faith is the bridge that makes the unseen visible. When you believe, you are shaping that unseen substance into tangible form. When you doubt, you are doing the same, but in reverse. Faith is never abstract. It is a structural force, the very foundation of the future that will unfold before you. Imagination is the workshop where the future becomes the present. In imagination, you may walk through the house not yet built, live in the relationship not yet begun, carry out the work not yet visible. When you imagine and hold that image with sincere feeling, you make the unseen alive in the mind. And the subconscious, which does not distinguish between real and imagined, accepts it as reality. From there, Faith has material to anchor itself, and spiritual law begins to move that image into life, to live as though it were already received. Is the true mechanism of faith. It is not pretense, but identification. When you live as though you already have, you send a consistent signal that it is yours. You begin to think, to feel, and to act from the position of one who's been given, and it is this identification that has power to attract and align outer circumstances. You are no longer a beggar. You are one who has received. When this state becomes natural to you, the result outside is only a matter of time. This explains why so many pray endlessly, yet see no result. They pray as the needy, plead as the lacking, and the emotions they send are filled with worry and waiting. But true faith does not wait. It stands in the present and declares, I have received. It is unmoved by delay because it knows the seed has been planted and the harvest is sure. Faith does not require evidence to begin, for it is itself the evidence. It is the substance out of which all evidence is born. Recall a moment in your life when you truly believed something beyond all doubt. You acted differently. You felt differently. And everything around you seemed to conspire to confirm that belief. That was not coincidence. It was the law of faith in operation. When you walk in conviction, you awaken the spiritual law, and the law must respond to such a powerful signal. Faith is not vague hope, nor shallow optimism. It is substance, spiritual reality, with power to organize the elements of life. It makes the unseen take form. It makes the hidden become evident. Faith is the highest creative instrument given to humanity. It transforms you from a passive receiver into a co-creator with the unseen order. Understand this, faith is not always loud. At times it is quiet, like a hidden stream that flows steadily. At times it does not stir strong emotion, yet it is firm, unmoved by circumstance. That firmness is its enduring strength. One may shout affirmations, yet carry doubt in the heart, and the law will hear the doubt. Another may remain silent, yet hold unshakable conviction in the heart, and the law will hear the conviction. Faith is the substance of the invisible. It is the starting point of creation, the bridge between imagination and reality. When you learn to live as though received, when you let imagination be the workshop, when you dare to look through events, to touch spiritual truth, you are employing faith in its highest form, and then what the world calls miracles will become natural, for they are simply the faithful reflection of an unchanging law that has always answered anyone who dares to believe. The greatest obstacle is divided belief. On the spiritual journey, nothing hinders more powerfully than a divided belief. This happens when the lips declare one thing, but the heart continues to nourish a script in the opposite direction. A person may affirm, I believe in peace, yet deep within they still brace for the storm. Another may say, I believe in prosperity, yet inwardly they quietly prepare for failure. This is not deception. It is inner contradiction, and it is this very conflict that fragments energy, producing unstable results here today, gone tomorrow, open for a moment, then closed again. Spiritual law cannot fully respond when the signal sent is divided. One part of you says yes, another says no. And the world mirrors that division with half-formed outcomes. This is why you may glimpse a spark of hope, an opportunity briefly opening, only to watch it vanish as if pulled back by an unseen hand. No external power is holding you down, only the contradiction within your own belief. Think of a house built on a weak foundation. No matter how fine the materials, the house will crack because the base is not united. Consciousness is the same. When the foundation of belief is divided, No number of affirmations can hold the structure steady. Only when the foundation is made whole does energy concentrate, and only then does the result endure. Healing the inner life is not about piling on new beliefs, but about dissolving old contradictions. You must have the courage to face the hidden scripts, the conclusions you have never questioned. They may be phrases you heard in childhood, impressions carved by experience, definitions repeated until they became normal. As long as they remain in the dark, they wield power, but when you bring them into the light, you begin to reclaim your freedom. This is the power of the voice within, not merely a voice you hear, but a space you return to. It is the inner voice, quiet, unpretentious, needing no proof, only consistency. When you come back to that space again and again, you gradually dissolve the conflicting voices. You begin to discern which voice is truly yours, which is the voice of the past, which is the voice of fear, and only by distinguishing them can you choose what to keep and what to release. Remember, a house divided cannot stand, neither can a mind. When you continue to declare one thing but secretly feed the opposite, you are sending two signals at once, and the law does not judge. It simply reflects the division. The result is a life half light, half dark, half open, half closed, not because you are unworthy, but because you have not yet made a decisive choice. Within, true power begins when you cease to contradict yourself, when words, feelings, and beliefs become one, when you not only say, I believe, but you feel it, expect it, and live as though it were already. So in that moment, energy is no longer scattered but focused. And that focus generates a force so strong the world has no option but to mirror it. Dissolving inner conflict is not a single act, but a process. Time and again, you will uncover hidden beliefs you never noticed, yet each time you recognize and release one, you reclaim a portion of energy once divided. Step by step, you grow whole, and once you are whole, creation flows like a river, no longer dammed. The greatest obstacle never comes from outside, but from division within. And when you learn to unify, when you choose one direction, when you stop speaking two words to yourself, the world begins to change. Not because it suddenly becomes kinder, but because it has only one signal left to reflect the integrity of your being. This is the secret of spiritual power and the turning point by which anyone may move from uncertainty to certainty, from disorder to harmony, from longing to reality. Prayer is a state, not a plea. Prayer is not arranging beautiful words and sending them into the sky, hoping that an invisible hand might hear and grant. True prayer is an inner state, the place where you dwell in the feeling that your desire is complete, that it has already become reality in the depth of being. Spiritual law does not respond to words. It responds to the person you are in the moment of prayer. It does not listen to what you speak with your lips, but to the rhythm of emotion carried in your heart. One may ask for peace, yet the whole body trembles in fear, and the signal received by the law is the fear itself. Another may whisper nothing aloud, yet inwardly is calm, steady, secure, and it is that state which is answered. This is why so many petitions remain unanswered, not because some power has denied them, but because the inner state contradicted the desire. The right prayer is not to cry louder, but to grow still and step into the feeling that it is already yours. Imagine you want light in a darkened room. You do not beg the lamp to pity you. You simply flip the switch and the light appears. Prayer is the same. It is not persuading the universe to change its mind, but the act of flipping the switch within, choosing to inhabit the feeling of already having. When the switch is on, darkness has no choice but to vanish. When the state is chosen, the outer world has no choice but to reflect it. Right prayer is the moment you enter the feeling of completion. You no longer ask when or how, for those questions rise only from lack. Instead, you live in the sense that it is done, and you carry that feeling into every thought and gesture. When you pray for health, you let your body rest in the feeling of being well. When you pray for abundance, you allow your mind to relax in the feeling of sufficiency, and that feeling is the strongest command the law can receive. It is important not to confuse empty imagining with the presence of faith. Empty imagining is like acting in a play. You do not believe. True prayer is embodiment. You step into the new role not to pretend, but to identify. You are no longer outside looking in, but inside feeling, living as it is, and from that state, decisions, actions, and opportunities begin to unfold naturally. Many say, I prayed, but nothing changed. In truth, they stopped at asking is standing outside the door. True prayer is stepping across the threshold and dwelling in the new room. Once you are within, the world must shift to harmonize. And when you have tasted that state even once, you understand that prayer is no longer a ritual. It is daily life. Every grateful thought, every peaceful feeling, every loving choice is a form of prayer. The world teaches us to beg in order to be granted, but spiritual law teaches that you must first receive in consciousness, and then you will see it manifest outwardly. This is not fantasy. It is principle. Prayer does not create something new. It allows you to become the one who can receive what already is. When you change state, you change the entire channel of transmission, and response must come. Remember, true prayer always carries a consistent feeling. It is not contradictory, not anxious, not waiting. It is the steady calm of one who has received from that calm. Your actions become effortless, yet precise. Your emotions quiet, yet powerful. You no longer repeat the plea because you know the prayer has been heard and the answer is already underway. Prayer is not asking. It is living in the truth that you have been given. It is a state you may return to at any time, needing no place, nor form. It requires only a decision in the heart, an identification in feeling, and a steadfastness in faith. When you grasp this, prayer ceases to be an occasional act and becomes the very air you breathe. And from that, your life takes on the character of unceasing prayer, always whole, always luminous, always answered. The art of receiving in the language of silence. Receiving is an art, for it does not arise from hurried action or demand, but from the subtlety of awareness. Many pray or affirm and then immediately wait for a loud sign, a dramatic event, a clear proof to believe their request has been answered. Yet most answers in life do not come like thunderclaps, but as a gentle breeze, a quiet stirring within the soul, a sense of calm seeping into ordinary moments. If you look only for dramatic shifts, you may miss the very moment. The answer is knocking softly on the door of your heart in silence. The art of receiving requires letting go of conditions on how the answer must arrive. You may expect it to appear as a grand opportunity, yet sometimes it begins as a simple idea in the early morning. You may look for a striking change in your work, yet sometimes it begins with a chance encounter. You may wait for an outward sign, yet sometimes the answer is an inner shift. when suddenly the old fear is gone. This subtlety is the language of silence, and only a listening mind can perceive it. Receiving is not passive waiting, but active preparation. When you allow your nervous system to grow accustomed to the state of already having, you are training yourself to receive. If you hope for healing, let your body grow familiar with the feeling of ease. If you hope for abundance, let your soul learn to breathe in the feeling of sufficiency. When you train yourself to live in the state of already having, you are not merely imagining, you are opening the space for the real answer to step in and harmonize with you. Let me ask you something. In this very moment, are you listening to the silence within yourself? Do you notice the small shifts in your soul? Those moments when old worry fades, leaving behind a strange steadiness. If you have ever felt that moment, share it by writing a simple phrase, I recognize, or simply type the number 1, then I will know you are not just hearing these words, but truly present in this journey. Thank you for being here, for your presence itself is proof that light is spreading through every word. The language of silence can be so gentle that a noisy mind cannot perceive it. It does not make you leap in triumph. It only makes you smile in peace. It does not stir storms outside. It only quiets the storm within, and from that quietness, the outer world begins to realign. Receiving, therefore, is never a loud upheaval, but a tender process. It is like a seed germinating beneath the soil. You hear no sound, yet life is rising. When you learn to receive through silence, you stop searching with your eyes and begin to see with your heart. You cease demanding the answer to take this or that form and open instead to let it come in the most natural way. You stop controlling the rhythm and let a greater rhythm arrange itself. Then you will see life give you far more than you thought possible. For receiving is not bound by logic. It opens by trust and by identification. So step into the art of receiving as though stepping into a delicate melody. No need for noise, no need for haste, only presence, listening, and allowing your soul to grow familiar with wholeness. Then you will realize the answer was always there, waiting only for you to grow, still enough to see it. This is the language of silence, a language without words, yet one with the power to turn the course of an entire life, decoding the so-called impossible. Impossible is not an absolute wall, but only the boundary where belief has not yet reached. Everything humanity once labeled impossible has at some point been challenged, and when challenged, it dissolved like smoke. Flight was once a fanciful dream, until someone dared to believe in wings of metal. Instant messages across continents were once thought fantasy, until someone dared to believe in invisible waves. The impossible, therefore, is never absolute. It is only a temporary frame set by collective belief and accepted by the individual mind. A miracle is not the violation of law, but the unveiling of a higher law, beyond the narrow vision of man. Just as the discovery of electricity did not erase older principles, but revealed a new order, so miracles operate by the same principle. They do not arise by chance, but when belief surpasses the conditions of reason and connects with a deeper spiritual order. When such belief is sustained, spiritual law unfolds, and the result appears so striking that observers call it miraculous. What binds most people is not weakness, but the rule of reason as master. Reason was designed to analyze, compare, and measure, but when it becomes the ruler, it can only draw conclusions from past data. It says what has never happened will never happen. What has failed before will fail again. But faith does not belong to data. It belongs to vision beyond data. Place reason back into its role as servant of consciousness, and you open the door for faith to lead. Reason may calculate the road, But faith chooses the destination. Reason may measure the wall, but faith knows the wall can be climbed. When you believe, you do not deny conditions, but you stop letting conditions define limits. You look at the report, the numbers, the situation, and you acknowledge them as present facts, but you also know they are not destiny. They are only reflections of old belief. And in any moment, you may choose a new belief, and in that moment, the whole picture begins to move. Impossible is nothing more than the past repeated. When you change belief, you redraw the map of the future. Within every person lies an uncharted territory where the higher law waits to be awakened. In that place, there is no such word as impossible. There is only order. When you dare to step in, you discover that what is called miracle is simply a return to that order. The body can heal when the mind changes state. Circumstances can open when you change perception. And a door can appear in the very wall where once you thought there was none. Those who touch this realm are often dismissed as dreamers, yet they are the ones who leave the imprint of change upon the world. They are not dreamers without foundation. They simply refuse to invest belief in the so-called impossible. They choose to build emotion, image, and faith within, and allow spiritual law to respond. When results arrive, the world calls them extraordinary, but within, they know it is no accident. It is the inevitability of undivided belief. To decode the impossible is to stop treating it as absolute reality and begin seeing it as merely a habit of belief. When you dare to challenge that habit, you open the space for a new order to step in, and in that order, what was once labeled impossible becomes self-evident. This is how every miracle works, not by breaking law, but by revealing law. And when you place reason back in its place, letting faith lead the way, you will see that impossible is only an empty word, while infinite possibility is the truth, waiting for you to enter. The inner blueprint and identity. No one can build a new house on an old set of plans and expect it to be different. Life works the same way. You cannot create a new existence while still operating from the old blueprint within. The inner blueprint is the silent set of definitions you carry about yourself. It is not what you say out loud, but what you quietly accept as true about who you are. And those definitions, even if unconscious, draw the boundaries for every outcome. They are like an invisible ceiling. No matter how high you try to climb, as long as that ceiling remains, you will hit it and be pulled back down. Identity decides what you allow to happen in your life. If within you still believe you are someone who must struggle, you will continue to meet circumstances that force you to struggle. If you believe you are never the one chosen, opportunities will slip away even when they draw near. The painful truth is that you yourself wrote those definitions and then lived inside them as though inside a locked room. This is the power of the voice within, not merely a voice you hear, but a space you return to. The inner blueprint is that voice you habitually revisit, the stories you whisper to yourself, the assumptions you accept without ever questioning. Each time you return to that space, it lays down the foundation, and that foundation governs your outer life. This is why, if you truly want to change your life, you cannot only change actions, you must change the blueprint. To change the blueprint is to establish a new identity. You no longer agree with the old definitions. You no longer call yourself by limiting names. Instead, you rewrite your identity not with empty declarations, but with deep identification. You begin to live, to feel, and to act as the new person. You carry the emotions of one who is already free, already chosen, already empowered, and gradually this identification dissolves the old blueprint and replaces it with a new design. This is not pretense, but a process of redefinition. You are not forcing yourself to become a stranger. You are removing the false layers that have hidden your true identity. The new self is not an addition, but a return, and when you live in that return, what once seemed distant suddenly becomes natural, for it now aligns with the identity you have chosen. If someone believes they are small, every success will be overshadowed by the feeling of unworthiness. But if they change the blueprint and accept themselves as a channel of abundance, abundance will come without strain. If someone believes they are a victim, they will repeat cycles of pain. But if they change the design and recognize themselves as creator, every experience will reflect that power, it is the silent definitions, not surface efforts, that exert the strongest force in shaping life. Identity is the deeper layer of belief. Belief can change circumstances, but identity changes the entire trajectory. When you identify with a new self, you no longer need to force every outcome, for outcomes are the natural extension of who you have become. Just as a mango tree does not struggle to bear mangoes, a person with a new blueprint does not strain. They simply live, and life produces results to match. Changing identity is not one step, but a sequence of consistent decisions. Each day you refuse to return to the old story. Each day you affirm the new design. Each day you live as though it were already true. Gradually, the old neural pathways weaken and new connections grow strong. In time, the new identity is no longer an effort, but your natural breath. And when that moment comes, your outer life must mirror the new identity. You are not bound by what has been. You are only bound by the blueprint you have not changed. And the good news is that the blueprint can be changed at any moment, the instant you dare to face the old definition and declare, it is no longer your truth. When you do this, you do not merely change a few outcomes. You change the entire room of your life. You raise the ceiling and open to a new sky. From then on, life itself becomes proof that the greatest change never begins outside. But with the inner blueprint, you have chosen to return to. Perseverance is emotional stability. Perseverance is not blind effort or strained struggle to pull something towards you. Perseverance is the ability to remain in the state you have chosen. Despite temporary evidence whispering the opposite, it is a form of emotional stability where you choose to stand firm in inner truth instead of chasing the fluctuations of circumstance. When you can hold that state, you have touched the secret of spiritual endurance. Spiritual law does not respond to bursts of emotion. No matter how intense, it does not measure the flash of inspiration, but the momentum, the rhythm to which you return again and again. Just as water does not carve stone in a single flood, but by continuous flow, the law does not shape results from fleeting feelings, but from the stability you sustain. This is why perseverance is the difference between drifting desire and formed result. You may have known a moment of clarity where everything felt certain, but when storms rose, you abandoned that state and fell back into old worry, and the momentum disappeared. This is why many see their lives rise and fall like waves clear one day, clouded the next. They think they lack faith, when in truth they lack perseverance. They have not learned to return often enough until returning becomes abiding. Perseverance is not straining against doubt, but returning to the chosen truth again and again until it becomes natural. Each return lays another brick in the foundation. Each moment of emotional steadiness strengthens the momentum, and at last, you no longer struggle to return, for you have remained. The state has become your home. Think of a musical instrument that must be tuned. If you adjust the strings once and leave them, the sound will soon fall out of harmony. But if you patiently adjust again and again, the strings stabilize and the instrument produces clear tone. The mind is the same. Choose a new state once, and it will quickly fade. Adjust it with perseverance. Return when it drifts, and you will reach the point where the new state becomes the steady melody of your life. Do not let temporary evidence mislead you. Outer proof always follows inner state. When you change state, the world needs time to rearrange. In that space, you may still see remnants of the past, but do not mistake them for destiny. They are only echoes, the inertia of old images. If you persevere in emotional stability, the new momentum will overtake the old and new evidence will appear. This perseverance does not come from grim effort, but from quiet trust. It does not make you rigid, but firm. It does not close you off from the world, but opens you to a deeper order. The truly persevering are not those who fight strain against trial, but those who have chosen an inner ground and refuse to leave it. From that ground, they watch outer storms as passing winds, while their roots hold to the truth they have chosen. When you learn the art of perseverance as emotional stability, life begins to answer with an unusual certainty. You become less swayed by passing moods, less shaken by others' words, less tossed by small events. You become a steady center, and from that center, the world must adjust to the rhythm you radiate. Perseverance is a decision, but it is also a discipline. You cannot wait for calm to begin. You must practice stability in the winds. It is in challenge that the return matters most. It is in difficulty that you build the spiritual muscle, the strength nothing else can replace. When you understand this, you stop chasing fleeting inspiration, stop running after emotional bursts. You focus on returning until returning becomes remaining. And once you remain, you discover perseverance is no longer effort, but essence. You no longer ask when results will come, for you are already living in the result. You no longer seek for signs, for the sign lives in your heart. This is the height of endurance and the door to every lasting transformation in life. The law is always on and ends in light. The spiritual law never sleeps, never rests, never pauses to wait until you are ready. It is always on, always moving, always reflecting the signal you send in every moment of life. Whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not, the law continues its work, precise as gravity, steady as the beating of your heart. What you send out is not measured by bursts of intensity, but by the consistency you maintain. A forceful affirmation for a few minutes cannot compare with the steady signal you radiate all day, for the law does not respond to lightning flashes, but to enduring light. When you live in the state of answered prayer, you no longer check constantly to see when it will appear. It has already taken form in the unseen, and the world has only one task: to echo it. The nature of an echo is not determined by shouting louder, but by sustaining a clear tone. You hold emotional stability. You keep faith in quiet strength, and all things around you begin to rearrange, to reflect it. The world has no other choice, for it can only resound with the music you have sown. The light has never gone out. At times you think you are lost in darkness, yet the light is still there, only hidden behind clouds of doubt, worry, or old memory. Return to inner stillness, and you will see that the light has always endured, never diminished. It is the lamp that never fades, and its unfailing presence is the foundation of your trust that every true prayer has already been answered within the order of the law. The secret is to measure life not by short-term events, but by long-term rhythm. Those who do not understand the law often give up too quickly when results do not come at once. They imagine the law has ignored them, when in fact the law is reading the song they sing each day. If your melody is consistent, even gentle, it still has the power to create form. If your melody shifts from bright to dark, from steady to broken, your result will mirror exactly that. This is not punishment, it is perfect reflection. To live from the state of answered prayer is to stop seeking proof in order to believe, and instead to believe as the ground from which proof appears. You do not wait for the world to change before you feel peace. You live in peace so the world may reflect it. You do not wait for the miracle to appear before you believe in miracles. You believe in miracles so they may appear. When this state becomes your natural breath, you stand on solid ground where all outer things are only echoes. This is the ending in light, not the end of the journey, but the end of the illusion that you were ever abandoned or unheard. The light has never vanished. The law has never ceased. The answer has never been withheld. Only hold the right signal long enough, with integrity enough, and you will see that all was present from the beginning. Therefore, live as though you are raising your voice in a vast cathedral. Do not worry if the echo returns slowly or quickly. Sing only with steady faith, and the echo must come back. The law does not favor, does not delay, does not forget. It only reflects faithfully the signal you choose as the music of your life. And when you understand this, you cease worrying, cease restlessness, because you know light always prevails and every true prayer always ends in clarity. This is the destination of every inner journey, to live in the light that already is, to sustain the signal of faith, to let the law reflect until the world itself becomes evidence. You do not need to cry out to be heard. You need only to be consistent. You do not need loud demands. You need only quiet steadiness. And in that stillness, you realize the light has never gone out, never far away, but always present, waiting for you to return, that it may illumine your whole life. In the end, you will realize that power has never been beyond your reach. The law is always on. The light has never left you. And every sincere prayer has already been answered in the unseen depth. The only task is your consistent return to the chosen state until it becomes your home. Live as though you have received, and let the world be the echo. Walk in peace. For peace is the seed of all transformation. And when you believe not merely in words but in the steadiness of the heart, you will see the impossible dissolve and the miraculous become natural. The light has never gone out. It is waiting for you to rise and step into it, so that your life may become a living testimony to the law of faith.